We are here to recap another wild shakeup in the points race of the 450 class of Monster Energy Supercross, plus some chaos in MXGP this weekend. Welcome to episode number 34 of the Stire Sound. I am Trey Stire, your host. Thank you for joining us. As always, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, YouTube, you know where to find us. Be sure to follow the show, like, subscribe, hit the notification for more, all of that fun stuff. Joining me as always from the Dirt Bike Depot WMR KTM team, we're here to recap everything that went down in Detroit and in Frauenfeld, Switzerland. Joining me as always, Jack Noel. What's up, man? How are we doing? A little bit better for the Dirt Bike Depot crew this weekend. Still not quite what you're looking for, but at least some positive signs going into this weekend in St. Louis.
Yeah, no, I mean we it was kind of interesting. We were placed in C group, so like we kind of were not we were our the cards we got dealt were great. So like I mean, you get a fresh track, the whoops are fresh. We knew we were the fastest two or three guys out there. Like they kind of split it up towards like 10 and 10, so we were like in that bottom half of the other 10. So it's like all right, like it looks like that's what we're gonna have to deal with this weekend. Like no worries, like I wasn't really stressing it. The team was like, let's make the most of it. And I think we did exactly that, right? So we went out there, we qualified 15th and 19th overall, which is the best by far for any of the guys. Jace by almost 10 positions, I think, this year. And then Marcus, his previous best is the 25th. So the class is definitely weakening out. Like, I think we in Birmingham, not necessarily contenders, but three solidified main event dudes went down, and I think that definitely helps us. Like it's not like it's a bad thing for us. I mean, it sucks, don't get me wrong. I never want to see anybody go down hurt, but when those guys get hurt, it's time for somebody else to step up to make that jump into the main event, and I think that's what we're trying to do. So it was definitely tough. Once the racing started, like the heat race was okay. We both guys were in heat two, and just wasn't meant to be right away. I don't think Jace just didn't get a great start and kind of made a small mistake on like the third lap. Got pushed outside by a rider. Wasn't anything dirty or anything. It was just racing and kind of stalled his race. And then Marcus was able to make some moves early, but got stuck in 10th and couldn't make a pass for ninth. So LCQ. Great. If Marcus has a top five gate pick in any scenario where it's a heat race or an LCQ, I almost would put like a lot of money on him banging the whole shot out. Like he's just such a good starter. I don't know if you guys watch any of the qualifiers if they show the starts or not on the race day live,
Yeah.
but he pulls the whole shot quite often. So I was pretty confident that Marcus would get the whole shot in the LCQ, and of course he did. And then yeah, just I figured Derek Kelly would get by him. I was hoping he could hold off. I think it was Kyle Peters and Jahan behind him, and maybe CJ Bernard. I think
You're right.
it'd have been tough to hold on to it, but I think he could have. The track was pretty one line, and he was doing all the rhythms, so it wasn't like there was a section of the track where he was significantly slower. And he was still running good lap time, so like granted, he would have had to have some help, which unfortunately he did be his own doing, to not make it. So, I mean, he was just kind of a dumb mistake, cased the jump, and just kind of the wheels fell off from there. Kind of disappointing. I mean, it obviously sucks to go down like that, but it's a scenario that we've seen too many times to be like, it's okay, bro. You know what I mean? So just being with the kid for so long, you kind of learn what happens in situations, and it seemed a little bit like the pressure got to him a little bit in that scenario. Because it wasn't like it was a crazy case where he like frame cased it and like hit the bars. It was just kind of like a and then kind of threw him into the next jump, and he tried to go for the next one, and that just wasn't the right move, and just fell. So for Marcus, it sucks, but I don't think it's a lack of effort, really. I just think it's in the moment we have to be a little bit smarter about what we're doing. And then for Jace, I mean, he got sixth in the LCQ, nothing to write home about, but definitely better than what we've been dealing with the last 4 weeks. So the goal is the same to get these guys in the main event, and then A-Rod he got hurt in the first qualifier and just kind of rode around. It wasn't really much. He didn't even line up for the LCQ. He was hurting so bad. So hopefully he's back 100% this weekend. And but yeah, there's nothing to write home about. But hopefully we can get some momentum going into these last four. I'm really hoping that we can get something going. Maybe make a main event or two. It'll be tough this weekend in St. Louis. I think the goal just to make the night show, but. Yeah, that's all I got really for this weekend. I'm on the team side of things, so yeah, I'm looking forward to St. Louis.
Getting in now to the 450 class, of course, the big headlines of the weekend, and what a shakeup it was. It was Ken Roczen performing well, continuing his pace from Birmingham, gets his second win of the season. First time he's had multiple wins in a season since 2021, which is crazy to think about. But the championship race is completely flipped on its head. Hunter Lawrence battling for a podium, and then he goes down hard, messes up the front brake on his bike, goes into the pits, gets an adjustment, and still goes back out there. He was a lap down, tips over again. Terrible night for the 96. His previous worst finish was P5, and then he puts an 18th on the board and a huge blow. Eli Tomac goes into the weekend. Not quite the Eli Tomac we're used to, but he walks away from Detroit with the red plate despite finishing fifth, despite fading through the pack a little bit. He just kind of let J. Coop go around him. I think a couple more laps. Cooper Webb gets him. Of course, maybe Cooper Webb and Jorge Prado get him both if they don't go down at the beginning of the race, and I'm sure we'll touch on that as well. But just when we think Hunter Lawrence is going to be able to potentially run away with this championship, and he had 3 wins in 4 races, this happens. Hopefully, I didn't jinx him. First time I've picked him for the win all season, and then this happens. Like, I hope I'm not the initiator of all of that. But here we are. Eli Tomac has the points lead now, and all of a sudden, Ken Roczen isn't just the big winner of the night. He's the big winner overall because Kenny goes from 31 down to 14 down. He makes up 17 points in a single night, which is insane to think about. But now here we are. Hunter Lawrence has lost the red plate. He's lost that momentum. Eli Tomac's not necessarily riding at his best. He wasn't the best in Birmingham. He still gets third, but loses 30 seconds to Hunter Lawrence during the race, and then a P5 at Indianapolis, or in Detroit rather. Chase Sexton back on the podium. Good return for Chase. Heat race winner. And then P2. Mookie on the podium for the first time this season. Great to see Malcolm Stewart back up on the podium as well. But the championship race has completely flipped around. And I know we've said that a few times this season, but just when we think we start to find a rhythm, we start to find consistency, oh, this guy might take it, or it's going to be these couple guys, everything flips around again. And now all of a sudden, Ken Roczen finds himself in the middle of the title race after we were close to writing him off just because the gap was getting so large between himself and Eli and Hunter.
Yeah, no, that this past weekend, and I literally just watched the race in the actually last night before we recorded this because I hadn't even seen it yet. And I'm glad I watched it because I did learn a lot about kind of what was going on and how well one Kenny rode, and then two, how bad Eli Tomac looks, like, and then the whole Hunter Lawrence situation. Like, it really should have been Hunter Lawrence's almost nail in the coffin night if the cards played out a little bit better. Because I don't think Hunter was finishing worse than second before the crash. And like we have what we're going in around 12, right? I believe. So like we have 6 rounds left. Like it really if once it gets to like I think they would have put the gap on if let's say Tomac got fifth, they would have put the gap at another it'd have padded another 9 points in there. So we'd have been looking at almost 18 points, 15 plus points to Tomac, and that's kind of like a tough zone to get back from. You need a night like tonight to really get back, you know? So um no, it just throws another curveball into the championship where none of us expect Hunter Lawrence to be where he's at, and of course he's there. And I mean, not that none of us expected it, but like I don't think any of us would have guessed he'd have been this good, this late in the season or however we would have expected it, or not to see Chase Sexton up there, or not to see Cooper Webb up there. Like the two guys that were battling last season are sitting fifth and sixth in points right now, or
Yeah.
fifth and seventh, or something like that. So pretty crazy. Like I just think that there's like two major points that I want to look at, and you brought one up already. That Ken Roczen is immediately back into this championship. I mean, he went from, like you said, if it was a 15-point swing almost for him. Like going from what would have been 30 down to now he's 14 down or something like that. Like I think as a fan, like Ken Roczen getting momentum like this late in the year is kind of scary. Like Ken Roczen, like although he said he didn't look good in the first couple laps, I completely disagree. Like I don't know what the hell he's thinking. I'm like the third corner, like by the time he had basically caught Prado, like past his Prado on like the first lap, like that's just Ken Roczen to a T. Like dude's gonna make passes on the first lap. Like he could be in sixth, and then all of a sudden he's in first. You're like, what the hell? I'm like, what? They're like, what just happened? And then Chase obviously just kind of sticking it out in second, and then Prado and Webb, that whole thing. I didn't realize that happened so early in the race.
Yeah.
Like I was
Only
like, that
lap
was like
two.
lap three. I thought it would have been like a couple laps where like Prado's holding up Webb, so Webb dive bombs him on the inside. Like I was like, what the heck? Like that was the craziest thing ever. Which also, by the way, AMA. I
You
mean,
get a penalty. They're handing them out like Oprah, dude.
did Cooper Webb get a penalty for that?
No.
That doesn't make any sense.
And that fills your precedent from last week. Remember? You were ranting about Star Yamaha favoritism. Here we
I
are.
I'm telling
Vince
you, dude,
Friese
it
gets
doesn't.
10 points docked for taking two people down. Cooper Webb goes and swipes Jorge Prado, kind of like Evan Ferry did to Pierce
Bro, it,
Brown.
I
Nothing.
genuinely think it was worse than Ferries. Ferries had like there was like intent to turn, like there was, and that's what they said there wasn't. I'm like, dude,
And
are
it
you
was for the
kidding me?
final transfer spot, too.
Like that was
I
for
think that should be benefit of the doubt.
third place with 20 minutes to go, pretty much. It was 18. Like I'm like, are you kidding me? Like really? Like that's like it's like that almost seems like targeting. Like you know what I mean? Like targeting flag on a play, like helmet to helmet contact there. But I don't know. I guess it was deemed not
I
a
guess he
foul.
didn't lead with the crown.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. But just had to throw that out there while I was thinking about it. I'm like, nope. I'm just like, all right, well, AMA, whatever, AMA. It's not my. I don't run the club, so it's whatever. But I just wanted to point out there, like, I don't know if you saw this after the race, but Tomac and his dad were visibly unhappy after that fifth place, and Tomac's dad straight up said we got our asses kicked, and I look at it like this. That I watched the whole race. They had a lot of eyes on Tomac during that race. They showed Tomac on TV quite often. I don't think his bike looked very good. Like I think he looks uncomfortable. I don't think he was comfortable at all. His whoop speed was terrible. Like he was getting munched in the whoops by Webb and Cooper. And on top of that, he's like getting fifth and getting smoked by 30 seconds and didn't have any fight last weekend. And there wasn't like a whole lot to say about that, but didn't have anything. And it's like, what are we thinking about that, guys? Like, what is KTM thinking? What's wrong with the bike? I mean, we moved from the West Coast style tracks to now we're moving into East Coast style tracks. And the like Birmingham's very East Coasty, that clay dirt. Detroit's kind of the same. It's like Indy. It's like in between Indy and like St. Louis, like where like it's kind of hard packed, but it's not hard packed. It's like tacky, slickish dirt that ruts up and stuff. So it's kind of weird. Like it ruts up in the rhythms, but the corners aren't as bad. Um, and yeah, I don't know. Like we're just getting into these races that are like more East Coast style with Nashville coming up, and then as well as Cleveland and Philly. Like these are going to be crucial races for Eli Tomac, and if he can't continue to build on this points lead, I mean he's only got a 4 point lead, right? Like you would think if Tomac sees Hunter go down a lap, like we need to drop the hammer, dude. Like, but he didn't have nothing. He had nothing in the tank. Absolutely nothing. Like that could have been the championship losing night for Tomac at the end of the day with how bad he rode. So I look at it like this. I don't think it's him. I think it's the I really do not think it's Tomac, but Tomac handles situations a little bit better than Chase in scenarios where he doesn't throw the bike under the bus. But I think the bike is struggling, and I think Jorge Prado was right, and I think Chase Sexton was right about both machines because both of those guys are struggling right now. And when you struggle with the bike, you have results like that where it doesn't seem like you can push and you can do what you want to do on the motorcycle. And like I think Chase's scenario is to what he was complaining about last year, the shock and it being bad in the whoops and being all over the place in the rhythms. Like you could see that with Tomac's bike. You could see like where the issue was lying. Prada's scenario of it being a little bit slower and it being super chattering the corners and can't find the right setup or whatever it is like it seems like that could be the case with Chase. I'm not like saying 100%, like I haven't heard anything myself, but I'm just saying like what Prada was saying could have been true. Like these guys are both struggling with bike setup and what they've said about the bikes, Chase being the shock and Prada just complaining about who knows what. But it seems like some of those things could be true, and it's interesting to see that. Just throwing that out there. But yeah, no, Detroit was definitely a wrench in things, and I think this championship is getting so much better. I think if Tomac can figure it out, and I think if Chase can be a dark horse and figure it out and steal a win or two and get in between Hunter Lawrence and Ken Roczen and Eli Tomac, I think it'll be make it for a great championship.
I agree. And as far as Tomac's performance goes, I got a lot of Salt Lake City 2013 vibes. Not sure how many people will get that reference, but Salt Lake City 2013, final West round of the 250 series that year. It was Eli Tomac, Ken Roczen battling for the championship. Kenny goes out, fails to qualify. It's not like he crashes, DNF, something like that. He straight up DNQs for the main event. Golden opportunity for Eli to regain the points lead. Eli goes out in the main event, starts up front. He's right there. It's like, oh, he's going to have the red plate going into Vegas. No, just fades to like seventh. Just gets worked by Jason Anderson, Ryan Sipes, Cole Seeley. I don't remember who all was in that class, but I mean, you just go down the order, and Tomac just faded. And it's like this is a golden opportunity for the guy to really sew away this championship. You have Ken Roczen, your title rival. It's not like he's even in the main event. He's watching from the stands, and Tomac isn't able to capitalize. And then the next week at Las Vegas, Kenny sews up the title. It just gave me flashbacks to that because I always think of that. Everybody likes to talk about the weirdo Eli rides from years past, but that's like the Eli ride I always think about. It's like, whoa, it's like same situation here a little bit, not quite, but Hunter Lawrence, a guy who's been top five all season long, he's only been off the podium twice, and he's going down. He's tipping over in front of Christian Craig after he's back on the track. Shame the lappers got in the way, you know what I mean? But Hunter Lawrence is out there and he's in 18th position. He was at one point 19th, 20th. I think he finally got back around Kevin Moran's after going down again. But it's a golden opportunity. And I know Eli was off a little bit throughout the day, but you think this could be a great chance for him. I mean, you think about how big the points lead could be if he went up there and win. Granted, he didn't have that pace really all day, but if Eli Tomac wins that race and Hunter Lawrence stays in 18th, I mean, that's a 12-point lead, maybe something like that. It's a lot different going into this weekend in St. Louis and beyond. Just my observations from that. And Kenny's right back in this thing. Selfishly, as a fan, I really want to see Kenny close it down even more. And this weekend in St. Louis, I think we always like to talk about certain venues favor for certain riders. I don't think it really favors anybody this weekend because they've all had success there. Hunter Lawrence won the SMX playoff race in St. Louis in September. Eli Tomac won at St. Louis a couple years ago, the last time they were on the calendar as a standard supercross. Ken Roczen's first win after his injury seasons was at St. Louis a few years ago. So I feel like all of those guys really have some previous success to go off of in St. Louis to feel good. Maybe we see a guy like Cooper Webb or Chase Sexton just say, you know what, screw you guys. I'm not fighting for the title, but I want to win a race. Who knows at this point? I mean, it's going to be crazy the rest of the year. I don't know if you have anything to add real quick before we go to the 250 class, but
No, no, I know that. I'm just listening and agreeing with a lot of your points. I mean, I'm ready for St. Louis and to see how everything stacks up and see Hunter under a little bit of the pressure.
All right, moving into the 250 class now. Cole Davies. It's the Cole Davies show now on the 250 East. We saw the Hayden Deegan show on the West. Now we're getting to see the Cole Davies show. Heat race, he really just kind of cruised around and then still ended up with the victory, but in the main event, worked his way up through the field and the whoop speed. I mean, he made Seth Hamaker silly, and Seth Hamaker's no slouch. He just flew past him. Looked like prime Stu out there in the whoops. Cole Davies now 3 wins in a row. He's really got firm control of this championship as of now, at least all the momentum on his side. You have Seth Hamaker second. Joe Shimoda, not a great ride from Joe, which he said that on the podium. He wasn't very stoked with how he performed. Cody Schock was running third for a good part of the race. He tracked Joe down, passed him, but unfortunately he got squirrely in the whoops, which was a theme of the night, especially in the 250 class. Caden Dudney went down in the whoops. I believe Devin Simonson went down in the whoops during the main event. You had Nate Thrasher go down in the whoops, Casey Cochran DNFs. So many guys just cartwheeling. Evan Ferry was doing Supermans. Devin Simonson was doing transfers and flying into traffic from fourth place somehow. I don't know how he didn't go down on that incident. Of course, it's been making the rounds on social media. But in terms of the championship, you have Cole Davies really trying to take control. 3 straight wins after a couple down rounds at the start of the year. Of course, that first term pile up in Arlington that sent him back to fifth. But this weekend in St. Louis, I fully expect in the 250 class, not to try to foreshadow my podium predictions for St. Louis, but I think it's going to be Davies versus Deegan because you have two guys really hungry to prove that last time was just a fluke. Deegan's going out there. He's going to be riding angry. He had that penalty take away the win last time. And Cole, he wasn't stoked with his riding. Of course, he inherited the win, but he was far from happy with his performance in Birmingham. Now, clean slate this weekend in St. Louis. Those two guys are going to be throwing everything on that racetrack to try to one up each other and get that race win in the showdown this weekend.
Yeah, no, it's definitely. I think Cole Davies and Indian, I mean, have by far much more talented than the opposition that this year. I mean, luckily in the East Coast, it's a little bit closer. The guys in second and third have been a lot more consistent, and we've seen Seth take a win away, and we've seen Joe take not a win, but be close enough to to get in the way sometimes. And yeah, I think that's going to be the kind of key is to capitalize on mistakes. Like if Cole doesn't have a good weekend next weekend in St. Louis, which I don't think that's going to happen, but if it does, he's playing around with Deegan too much, and you can get in the way. And however something happens. It's something like that. So this weekend, I think, is going to be very crucial for this championship. I think if Cole doesn't have a great weekend, Seth and Joe both need to be on the podium. I think one of them
Absolutely.
needs to win. Because this is the easiest round to get people in between guys like Deegan and Kitchener out there and Ryder D Francisco, and those are guys you don't typically ride
Max
against.
Anstey.
Exactly. So it's going to be tough. Like it's not going to be easy, but like it's so possible that these guys can be, I don't know, up there. You know what I mean? Like if Davies isn't up there. So like that's what it's gonna take. It's gonna take a bad weekend from Davies, I think, now at this point. Unless Seth can get on a streak or something like that, which I don't really see happening. I like Seth a lot, but it's so hard to break somebody down without like a major mistake or like a FU kind of ride, which I just don't think Seth has that in the tank right now. Um, Against a guy like Davies, who's just so complete as a rider. It's actually like ridiculous how fast he is in the whoops. Like, he's probably better than everybody in the 450 class, I think, in the main event, like without a doubt. So, yeah, no, the 250 class this weekend is going to be so crucial for the championship. I think it's going to kind of either put Cole on a pedestal or it's going to put Cole, make him look human. So, I think that's going to be the key is Cole Davies human right now? Does he have that human mistake, that young kid mistake that we've all kind of looking to see if he's going to make it or not, and he hasn't yet really. So I think this weekend will show that. That's my take for this weekend, and I think if Seth or Joe can capitalize, it'll be make this championship. It'll shake this championship up. That's for sure.
It absolutely will, but I just feel like it's going to be the Davies Deegan show. You might have maybe Levi Kutchin get in there in between, say, Seth and Joe, but I just feel like it's going to be those two star Yamaha guys out front dominating in St. Louis. Now shifting gears to MXGP, and you thought St. Louis was wild, or you thought Detroit was wild, maybe foreshadowing, maybe St. Louis is going to be crazy this weekend. I don't know. But the MXGP of Switzerland was very chaotic. You had chains popping off left and right. You had crazy scores for podiums. But your boy Tom Vialle getting his first 450 win, 1-6 for first, matching his number plate. Very few times do you see a 1 and a 6 win. Shout out to Matt Gerke, Southwick 2009. But 1-6 for Tom, 7-2 for Maxime Renault, or 2-7 rather, for Maxime Renault, his fellow Frenchman in P2, and then Tim Geiser 9-2 for third. First moto was the Tom Vialle show. Lucas Coonan, third corner of the race. Chain pops off, receives outside assistance, disqualified. Jeffrey Hurlings in the middle of a race. Chain pops off, DNF. Roman Fevre went down. Adamo had chain issues. All kinds of crazy things happening. Meanwhile, Tommy's just cruising out in the lead. It was Vialle, Renault, Ruben Fernandez, the moto podium from the first race. And then the second race was just all Lucas Coonan. He goes out there. He was denied in that first moto, and then he goes out, rips the whole shot from an outside gate, and destroys everybody. I mean, 5 minutes into the race, and he had dropped Jeffrey Hurlings, and that's something you say very rarely. Lucas Coonan is operating on a very high level right now, and somehow, with 34-1 scores, Lucas keeps the red plate going into Italy next weekend. Rio Lasardo, the first of three Italian rounds. Tom had to work for that overall. Started like 21st at the green flag, I think, in the second moto, but he just gradually climbed forward, ended up getting to sixth, and that was enough for the overall victory. Weird, wacky round in the 450 class. Kai de Wolf looked solid. Wasn't a crazy ride, but definitely a lot better in his second round. Of course, he missed the opener in Argentina. He was kind of an 8 to 10 guy in Spain. Then he was battling right there. He was on Jeffrey Hurling's heels at the end of the 450 moto, at the end of the second moto when Jeffrey went down. Kai was right there. Wasn't able to capitalize, but he was still right there, giving a lot of pressure to Jeffrey. But Tom Vialle, first win, huge for him. I saw Lewis Phillips tweet is like he's got to be one of the few guys in history to win a 450 and 250 MXGP plus 250 Supercross, 250 motocross. Huge for Tom. Honda continues their momentum. Although Lucas has the red plate, this is a big step for Tom. And Lucas, I mean, I would have never expected if a guy goes DNF 1 to keep the red plate, but that was the kind of chaos that the round in Switzerland brought this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, well, whenever your title guy behind you does the same thing, pretty much, it's kind of
Yeah.
like, oh, thank God, you know. So, yeah, no, it's really it was an interesting weekend. Like, it was crazy because all the chains came off on, like the same corner. Like, I don't know if you
Yeah.
noticed that, but I'm like, what the heck? Like, they're all in the same spot and their chain popped off. Like, what the heck? So, must have been like a rut or something, like a rock and a rut or something that was like popping these things off. But nonetheless, it sucks to see that Kuhn and Hurlings both have bike problems, and neither one of them were able to like capitalize on the mistake. But I guess Tom Vialle did. Tom Vialle did exactly what he
Yeah.
needed to do to get him. So he's second in points now, I believe.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, no, it's gonna be. I don't know if you watched the qualifying race, but Tom, I think was it Fed that took him out, or was it Hurlings? Did you see that clip at all, or
I
no?
don't remember, but I do know that he wasn't able to score points. And right now, with a 7 point gap, that's pivotal because Tom went 1-2 in the first couple qualifying races. He goes up even fourth in his qualifying race the other day, and he would be tied with Lucas right now. But
Yeah.
instead, he's 7 down going into Italy.
So that's another thing I look at too is like that wasn't a great weekend for Tom at all to go no points, 25 points, and then you're getting what 30 or like 14 to
15. Yeah.
15 points. So like you have a 40-point weekend. So like not great, but not terrible when it could be it could be a 60-point weekend like Coonan had last weekend. So it's just gonna be the name of the game, I think, in this MXGP series is stay alive and capitalize when you can because I don't think anybody's that consistent. And I think bike problems in the MXGP are a little bit more potent than they are in the US. I think the tracks are a lot rougher over there. I don't think they're, I mean, just the conditions and stuff like that right now look treacherous. Like that track looked absolutely insane, like so bad. But yeah, no,
Thankfully,
it's
the dirt slowed him down a little bit this year because last year was really bad. That was the race where Geiser caught the divot and went down and wadded himself, took himself out of the championship. Same round, Gio wadded himself. I mean, last year, at least maybe with all the rain in the morning, it slowed the dirt down a little bit because I know last year was really sketchy too.
yeah. So nonetheless, that's kind of what we're all looking at, and or this round is known to shake some stuff up. So luckily, it was just chains popping off the bikes and not chains snapping in the air or whatever it is. So yeah, but no, Tom winning, I think that's huge for Tom to go 1-6. I don't even think he realized he won the overall until somebody on his team told him. So that was kind of funny. But like just a weird flip flop of a race where you have like the guys that weren't even in the top 10 all of a sudden are in the top five, and then the guys that weren't in the top that were that were in the top three were right outside the top five. So weird. I mean, 2-7 scores for Renault. It's like the battle for the overall was back sitting back there and in seventh. Like what the heck? So kind
Yeah,
of funny. But yeah, no, it was a good weekend for Tom. I think this is a legitimate championship contender when Tom Vialle. I think getting a win early is for him something that you can't buy that. You have to earn that. That's not something that's given to you by any means. And to get your first win, I think it will continue to build confidence for him, and I think that's what he needs right now. And I think if he can stay on top of Lucas and Jeffrey and be there in the fight and be consistent like the guy he knows he can be and be inside the top five all year and win someone they when the opportunity arises and be on the podium when he can, it's like Tom will never not be in this title fight because I think more rounds like this will happen for everybody, not just Lucas and Jeffrey.
I agree with that. And when you look at the standings, like I said, Lucas only 7 up on Vial. Hurlings is only 12 back. Maxime Renault, I don't really consider him a big championship threat, but he's only 19 down. Geiser's 20 down. Fevre's 23 down. And with the way things turn out in Switzerland, anything can happen and it can swing around really fast, especially since it's so early in the season. But then you look at the MX2 division, and now your defending champion Simon Langenfelder back in the lead, 22 points ahead. He goes 1-3 for the win. First moto was also crazy because speaking of chains going wrong, Mathis Villan cruising out in the first moto. He's got a nice little lead, and then his chain derails, and Mathis goes as a DNF instead of a one. Perez takes the lead, rubs elbows with a lapper, goes down, and Langenfelder takes full advantage for the victory in the first race. Then the second race was really just Guillaume Perez versus Liam Everts. Perez held the lead the entire race pretty much. It would seesaw a little bit. Everts would cut the gap down, then Perez would stabilize a little bit. Very conservative last lap from Perez, but he rode it home, scored the victory right in front of Everts. Langenfelder P3 in the race to secure the overall. Langenfelder, Perez, Everts on the podium. Sasha Kunin goes 2-7, clipped Langenfelder's rear wheel. For once, it wasn't one of those crashes where he just spectacularly flips down a hill and wads himself. He just clipped Langenfelder's rear wheel. Very pedestrian accident. Although he almost landed on Julius Mikula. Thankfully, that didn't happen. But now Langenfelder back with a 22-point lead. We've said it all along the last few weeks that we feel like this is Langenfelder's championship to lose. This is his prove it season. And now all of a sudden, Camden McClellan goes from the red plate to going 8 DNF, bad start in the first race, then crashes hard in the second race. Thankfully, he seems to be okay, just beat up and sore. But Langenfelder, all of a sudden, 22 points ahead of Perez going into Italy next weekend. And he's back on top. The number one will carry the red plate into round number four.
Yeah, such a bummer for Camden McClellan to have great weekend last weekend to go to such down in the dumps this weekend. I think that's some of the toughest things a guy can do, but I don't know how old MC is. How old is he?
That's a good question, to be honest with you. I'm not up on my ages or whatever on the thing, but I would say Camden's at least probably 21, 22, if I had to
Yeah.
guess.
So I don't know how much longer he has in this class, and same with Ferez. Ferez, I believe this is his last year he's eligible to race this class. So I mean, for Gillum to be doing this right now it's this is career altering for him. I think it's so positive because it puts him in a scenario where he's fighting for this championship. I think he's the second best rider, maybe even the best rider, to be honest with you, when it comes to consistency wise, like raw speed. Like I think he's faster than Langenfelder, raw speed to raw speed. But I think he does have a little bit of inconsistency. Not as bad as a guy like Everts and Coonan, but it's a little bit there. And like we saw in the first moto, he went down and it kind of blew. Like I think that's his overall. If he doesn't go down in the first moto, like he's gonna get at least third, and then he wins second moto, he wins the overall. Like so, I don't know. It was interesting to see. So I mean, like we all said too, like Langenfelder's to lose. Langenfelder's obviously been the most consistent, the most smooth guy. I think if he continues to on the path he's going to win on, he's going to win the title, no doubt. And the 250 class is just going to be a matter of who can prove themselves. When I think Perez having this early good season, if he can continue the momentum, I think he'll be a multi-time GP winner in the 250 class this year. And with Langenfelder being kind of on the outside looking in, if that does ever get to that point, like outside of the championship hunt, in the sense of like he's so far ahead, I think he's just going to be so content to cruise around in the top three and just let them hash it out for wins. Like I don't think he's going to push himself to win GPs all the time. So, and that's kind of the name of the game. I think if these guys can kind of like settle in when like they're not trying to push themselves on a track like this, where if you went a little too hard, it call you. And just settle into these positions. I think they could all have a little bit better championship runs, like be a little bit closer. But I think all these guys want to win so bad and have so much to prove. Like it's good. It's good to watch. Like carnage is what we all live for, right? Like so. I think the 250 class is going to be interesting. I really hope Gillum can continue on the trek he's on and keep clicking off these moto wins. And I think an overall's in his future soon. And I think Perez is genuinely not just biased opinion here. I genuinely believe that he's the second best guy in this class behind Langenfelder.
I just checked as well. McClellan, 21, turning 22 this year, it seems. But as you mentioned, his time will be running out in the class as well. But now, moving on, as I mentioned real quick, MXGP, they're off this weekend, so don't look for any MXGP racing. Just enjoy your Easter Sunday. They will be back next week in Italy for the first of three Italian rounds. But now, we're going to move over and we're going to check out the entry list this week. Of course, we're going to look at things in St. Louis. Nothing too crazy on there. Here we are, and we'll do our predictions as always. 250 East class, a little bit less entries this weekend, but of course the big one, Gage Linville, Dirt Bike Depot KTM alum, Triumph Racing Factory team there on the entry list. Huge opportunity for Gage. Can't wait to see what he's able to accomplish this weekend. But you look through a lot of familiar faces on the East Coast. Nothing really changes. Riley Ripper's back. 250 West class, no AEO Power Sports KTM this weekend. Don't know how many people saw the Instagram post, but Carson Mumford dealing with a shoulder issue, and it seems like Avery Long broke his foot or something like that. I believe it said in the Instagram post. So no AEO KTM this weekend. Also the St. Jude round, so we're going to see a lot of special graphics this weekend. Love Moto Stop Cancer round. Of course, we got the regulars in the West Coast as well. Aiden Shive, Crockett Myers, J.R. Saunier's back, Josh Greco dropping down to the 250 class, and then you look at the premier class. Of course, you have Eli Tomac, Ken Roczen, Hunter Lawrence in there, Jeremy Hand moving back up, no surprise, John Short as well. They did the same thing at the last East round. Justin Starling's back in action this week aboard his Yamaha. Jarrett Lesher going to be two smoking the stadium there in St. Louis, the Dome at America Center. Joan Cross, the Spaniard, is back for the first time this season on a Yamaha representing Team Faith there. Pretty standard entry list this weekend. Nothing too crazy. Then
I
we get
will
in.
say this before we move on to the
Go ahead.
offenses. I do not. I want to say I don't think Casey Cochran's going to line up this weekend. I He had a bit of a crash, obviously DNF last weekend, and I don't think. I mean, for him, I think coming back in Detroit was a to get there before the East West and kind of get some laps in. It wasn't like a you could tell he wasn't really pushing that hard. I don't think he wasn't at 100% yet, and it kind of not the crash wasn't bad. He's not hurt or anything, but he's it kind of stalled the healing process and moving forward. And to go to the East West would be such a pressure cooker. I don't think he's going to line up. So that's another spot in the night show, I believe, for somebody. Hopefully, one of our guys can make it in. But yeah, I don't think we'll see Casey this weekend, unfortunately. But
Sure.
yeah. So that's just something to throw out there. Just what I was seeing, and I don't even know if Gage is going to race. I know they announced it, but I'm not sure if he's 100% yet or not. So that's another thing too to throw out there as well. Just to put some predictions out there, just so nobody picks those guys.
Now, moving on to predictions from St. Louis. As you can see, we have our Detroit predictions on the screen. We didn't do very well. Jack did nail Ken Roczen. I got Cole Davies, but realistically, that was, fairly easy pick. Jack did get himself another random spot. Daxton Bennick bringing home sixth place for him. So there's a few more points there. Jack still has a 35-point lead on me for Supercross. I got to start clawing things back soon. Then moving over to MXGP. I picked Tom. I believed. I haven't picked him all year, but I picked up where you left off. I had Tom in first. I had Langenfelder in first, and then did nothing with the rest of my podiums. I barely have the lead there, 5 points over our boy Ed. No predictions from Ed this week, of course. We'll be talking about the next MXGP race next weekend and doing podium predictions there, but very close still, 60, 55, 45, and a long season to go in MXGP. But now moving on to St. Louis. Random spot this weekend is going to be ninth place in the two classes. So once again, another spot with a lot of options to pick from. But I'm going to go 250 podium first because I feel like it's the easiest one to pick. I'm going to have Cole Davies getting the upper hand after his disappointment from Birmingham, even though he inherited the victory. Hayden Deegan second. Then I'm going to go with Levi Kitchen in P3 to interrupt the Seth Hammaker Joe Shimoda battle. Davies, Deegan, Kitchen, I think. And then my ninth place pick, random spot, could be anybody, but I'm gonna go. You picked Dax last week. I think Dax might be ninth place this week. I know that might be lowballing it a little bit, but you also have Anstie, you have Ryder D, Joe, Seth, maybe one of these other guys like Cody Shock gets in there, beats him. I'm gonna have Dax Bennick, Maximus Voland as well. Max has been solid this year. Dax Bennick P9. Then in the 450 class, I don't know what to pick, to be honest. Like I said, I kind of feel bad for Hunter Lawrence. I feel like I jinxed him. It was the first time I picked him. I've been really bad with my winners in the 450 class this season. I'm not sure if I even have a single winner correct. Oh, I had Tomac at Daytona, but does that even really count? I mean, Tomac wins Daytona every single year. That's the only one I've got right so far this year. So St. Louis this weekend, I'm going to throw a curveball. It's going to be none of the championship guys. I think Chase Sexton's going to sneak in a win this weekend in St. Louis. But I think your other guys are going to be right there. I'm going to have Kenny in P2 just beating Hunter Lawrence. I keep putting H Lawrence. Jet should be back at some point. Maybe it'll be the outdoors. Maybe he'll show up for a couple rounds at Supercross. But I have Hunter Lawrence rounding out the podium. Then ninth place in the 450 Supercross main event. You know what? He was solid in Detroit. Best weekend of the season. I'm going to go Justin Hill for P9 on the Team Tedder KTM. That's my picks for this weekend in St. Louis. What you got for us, Jack?
I'll start 450. I kind of fully agree with you with Chase here. I think it's a home race for Chase. I think he's after the podium, his confidence is a little high, and I think there's going to be some carnage there in the back. I think Hunter Lawrence is going to struggle a little bit. I also think Ken Roczen isn't going to be. I think he'll be good, but I don't think he'll. I think he'll be caught up in the mix a little bit. I think he's going to edge out Hunter Lawrence. Um, I think Ken Roczen's going to be second. I might copy you here. I'm being dead serious. I think I'm going to go Hunter Lawrence for third. I think that's a really good. That's a good. I'd never like to copy you, but I feel so confident in
Well,
that.
let's hope it's the same, hopefully.
Top
I mean, I
three.
want to make up points, but if we pick it the same, hopefully we just nail it and we don't look
Yeah.
like idiots next week.
250 class though, I'm gonna go Levi Kitchen getting the win in St. Louis. He's always been pretty solid there, and it being a typical Supercross, I think he'll be fast. And then I'm gonna go Davies in second and Deegan in third. I'm gonna keep the podiums the same. But I think Kitchen's gonna pull out the win. Ninth place though, I'm gonna go. This is such a tough one with the East West. I like there's just so many guys inside the top five. You're like, who's gonna get ninth? Who's gonna get ninth? I'm gonna go Hunter Yoder for ninth place in the 250 class. And then for the 450 class, I'm gonna go with I don't even know who to pick. I think Colt Nichols gets a top 10, gets ninth this weekend. I think Colt's gonna
Colt
be
45 and two top tens, baby. That's all we need.
exactly.
There you
So
have it. There's our predictions for St. Louis. Same exact 450 podium. We're either going to look like geniuses or complete and total morons.
I hope it's all
And I'm
dinging.
prepared for the second option because of the way it's been all year long. But 250 class a little different there. Maybe one of our random spots pull through. I think only three random spots, two out of three from Jack. Of course, we had Croc Dog back in Glendale. I had Kevin Moran's in Indy, but there you have it. There is podium predictions from St. Louis. This has been episode number 34 of the Stire Sound. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate your love and support. Be sure to continue to support us. Follow at the Stire Sound Official on Instagram. Follow the show on all major platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, YouTube, just on my personal YouTube channel. Be sure to share the love. Whose Standing Is It Anyway? Episode 2 is out. Unsung Heroes of Detroit will be out later today whenever I get this up. I talked to Henry Miller after his career best P5 finish. Shout out to Henry for the great ride. And Luca Marsalisi as well, the only Privateer Triumph guy out there in the 250 East Division. And he put it in the main event as well. Anything real quick you want to add before we conclude today's episode, Jack?
No, sir. I'm ready for a good weekend in St. Louis.
Hopefully, it's another fun weekend of racing. I'm excited to watch. A little bummed there's no MXGPs this weekend, but they'll be back next week. Enjoy your Easter weekend, folks. Stay safe out there. Enjoy time with your family. Enjoy the racing from St. Louis. But for Jack Noel, I am Trey Stire, and the Stire Sound episode number 34 is fading out. We'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody.